After working with dozens of companies, I have realized something game-changing. The teams seeing the biggest results from A/B testing aren't necessarily running the most tests, have the biggest budgets, or use the fanciest tools. They're simply organizing themselves differently. While most companies overlook this entirely, the teams winning at experimentation have one thing in common. They've implemented a structured system of strategic meetings that keep everyone aligned, focused, and moving fast. It's not just about testing more, it's about meeting smarter. In this video, I'll walk you through the exact meeting cadence, from daily stand-ups to quarterly strategy alignments that consistently unlocks bigger wins and better insights from testing. This framework has helped teams go from disorganized and reactive to strategic and outcome-driven, and it can 10x your experimentation results too. Let's get right into it. All right, let's walk through the experimentation program meeting guide. To effectively drive your experimentation program, it's crucial to implement a structured meeting cadence that promotes alignment, collaboration, and continuous improvement. And this is really crucial here. It's about alignment, collaboration, and continuous improvement. I'll show you in the next or in the various meeting types how that actually plays out. This document, by the way, you can get at the end of the video. You can just send me a message or download it through the link in the video description, and you can use this in your organization directly. By following this cadence, team members will know when to prepare key metrics, share insights, and make strategic decisions, but also reflect on processes. So basically with this entire meeting cadence, we're not only making sure that we're constantly aligned, but we also improve consistently while driving the experimentation process forward. I have this structure where you can see basically where here, this is the monthly meetings, these are more the quarterly meetings, where they should happen and in what kind of cadence these meetings should be happening. We're moving from weekly to monthly, quarterly, but also to ad hoc. One thing that I don't have here in the graphic is the daily, which is a stand-up, but we'll get right into it. Yeah, that's just basically what I just showed. But for just to get maybe just say a few things about what's daily, what's weekly, what's monthly. While on the calendar you probably know, but on the in terms of the cadence, basically daily things are just really operational typically, right? Weekly is more for planning but also sometimes learning sessions. Monthly meetings is typically to review what has happened, make decisions based on the insights that you have gathered, but also make decisions for the upcoming months or maybe just the month ahead. Quarterly are really probably the most strategic meetings, and it makes sure that everybody is still engaged in the program, but also really to review what has happened and plan for the upcoming quarters. If you're working not in quarters, but maybe in trimesters, obviously adjust this accordingly. So let's start with daily meetings, and I understand that it's not possible for all teams to do this, but basically a daily stand-up, which typically comes from development teams and product teams, is a quick check-in to sync on daily goals, remove blockers, but really to maintain momentum and make sure that everybody is heard and is able to unblock their blockers and make sure everybody can move forward. It's typically, depending on your organizational structure, and not just in a global sense, but also in terms of experimentation and product team, it kind of depends who needs to be part of this meeting. I typically say it's like the co-experimentation or experiment team, product team, or if you have like an optimization team, it's typically the people that actually drive experiments forward that should be included as needed. As always, don't invite anybody who doesn't need to be in this meeting. That goes not just for daily stand-ups or daily meetings, but also for weekly and monthly ones. Now going to the weekly meetings, and obviously when you hold these meetings is entirely up to you. But what I would try to do, one thing to keep in mind especially, is throughout the week there's various energy levels. So if we're looking at planning or something like hypothesis grooming, this is typically something I'd do either towards the end of the week, maybe Thursday or Friday, because then people can start the next week already on a high. They know exactly what's up, and they can then get into execution mode and not necessarily have to wait for these kind of meetings, and then potentially use these daily stand-ups to clarify any open questions. But the planning and hypothesis grooming meeting, depending on the size of your team, typically is like 45 to 60 minutes. I try to keep meetings as short as possible, but especially when you have larger teams where hypotheses and upcoming tests need to be discussed. 60 minutes should be fine, but again, try to adjust it accordingly to your needs. This really is about setting clear experimentation goals for the week. And this is not like, hey, this week we want to increase our, say, conversion rate by 10%. This is more about process. What are the experiments that we're going to roll out, and the goals we're setting for that. So for example, it could be you saying, hey, we want to get these 4 experiments live this week. And then you also go into the operations of how that will get done. You potentially prioritize hypotheses, ensuring that the entire team is aligned and what tests are to be run next. One thing regarding this meeting, because sometimes it makes it makes sense to split these up. So having an operational meeting where you actually talk through the just operations of getting these tests live, versus having a more strategic or at least a more planning meeting in terms of prioritizing hypotheses. And honestly, also sometimes you don't need the entire team present just to align on, or just to prioritize experiments and align on what's on the roadmap next. But that's probably more of a process topic for you to just integrate in a way that makes sense to you. Participants, also again, depending on your structure, but I would probably say product owners, analysts, designers, and developers. Again, nobody who's not needed. Just this meeting ensures basically that everybody's aligned, stays focused, and also that we're running the most impactful, at least from what we can tell, experiments, optimizing resources, and driving constant progress. I've included these sections like how to win, and one thing, because oftentimes these meetings are set in place and then there is no structure, people come unprepared, and here especially I would really make sure that people come prepared and have all the information available, ideally centrally. This is probably a different video, but so you can look onto the same ideas, documents, or prioritization. Exactly, test and learn sessions, something that is unfortunately often overlooked. And before I get into why this is so important, every week without learnings is a lost week. So basically I would try to integrate these learning meetings as regularly as possible, just so you make sure, and also this can be integrated in other weekly meetings, just like that you have a time slot where you discuss learnings, you discuss current test, but specifically like what you're also trying to learn from an experiment. And then once the experiment has concluded, the learnings you're drawing from that experiment. And ideally you're also doing that on a more meta level, so not just on a per experiment basis, but so this is super helpful. You can review results from previous weeks, add insights to the learning repository, although that can also happen asynchronously, so you don't necessarily need to do the operational things in the meeting. Discuss what worked, what didn't, and why, and align on any immediate adjustments for ongoing experiments. Example given, if you have any learnings from previous experiments that directly influence how current experiments are going, or if that is if they're like crossing, right? Then obviously this is like helpful here. Then monthly meetings, monthly retrospective. As I said, like the daily meetings are really operational. Weekly meetings are more planning, typically. Monthly is oftentimes looking back, and which is why I like monthly retrospectives. If you're working with OKRs, for example, this is something you're probably doing anyway. So making sure that you have one slot there specifically for experimentation and can be really helpful. So this can either be in a monthly retrospective that you're already doing, or it can be a separate experimentation or testing optimization, however you frame it in your company meeting, that basically helps you discuss what went well, what didn't, and why, and use these like retrospectives, but essentially this feedback loop to identify areas where you can improve. This can be regarding collaboration, communication, tool usage, but also processes. Like very important actually, like processes is probably one of the biggest missed opportunities, that if you don't constantly improve, you're basically leaving also essentially money on the table, because people are not working potentially as efficiently as they could. So what I'd always try to do is like at least get 2 to 3 concrete improvements or experiments to run on the process itself. This means sometimes regarding process or communication, you just need to try out different things, or you just see, hey, there's a clear blocker, we need to change that. So then obviously you do that. I would limit this to core team only, but obviously sometimes if you have interconnected teams, it makes sense to also at least share the learnings and the outcomes with other teams, so they can also make use of that and potentially influence how they are working. Yeah, I think I said all of that. One thing, what I would try to do is like not do this top down, but also like really try to get the feedback bottom up. So you're really encouraging an open communication and make sure that everybody feels heard, who can also have an influence on your processes and the program, in general. Then there's one thing also, right now we're looking at the retrospective, but now we have the monthly planning and decision and process meetings, right? This is typically, and you can also do this on a quarterly basis, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense to do this on the monthly basis, because only so much can happen within a month in terms of process, obviously. So really it's about looking at the metrics, performance review, making decisions on recent experiment outcomes, if there are some that are just not clear, right? Or are maybe more strategic than is possible to just like roll out an experiment, right? Or the implementation of that. Then doing really prioritizing resources, because sometimes you're hiring new people or something like that, or you need outside help, then really making sure that these resources are allocated in the best way. Process improvement brainstorming, this is typically what I would try to then go through. Also the concrete improvements that were already takeaways from the previous meeting, using that in this meeting and discussing that. And sometimes, depending on who's part of this meeting, also getting their feedback on it. Again here, just make sure people are actually prepared. Maybe send a meeting agenda, like a document or something, where all the relevant points are already discussed. If it requires a lot of planning, of course, really don't do this monthly, do it more irregularly, say quarterly, just to make sure that there is not a meeting for meeting's sake, because this is something we definitely want to avoid. But a note on that in just a minute. Then we go to quarterly meetings. Really, we're moving from monthly to quarterly here, and as we do that, we're moving into a more strategic alignment and what I call integration session. So it's basically taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture of your experimentation program, and really making sure that everybody in the company is aligned. And obviously this is like a huge thing. You will never get everybody aligned, or like very rarely, on the company's growth objectives. But this is your chance to actually do that, get the right mix of people to align. So sometimes this is senior leadership, where they're not really involved typically in the day-to-day operations, but they also obviously care about the outcomes, and typically also provide like the strategic guardrails of where things are going, your core team leads and cross-functional stakeholders, depending on, again, how your team is, or how your company and organization is set up. In these meetings, what I typically like to do is be ready to pivot, adjust, and add resources as needed to stay on track. Why is that necessary? Because if this meeting is just basically like saying the same thing over and over again, well, obviously being consistent with strategy and with objectives is important. Sometimes if you're seeing that something's really going wrong, but you need senior buy-in for something, be ready to pivot, and also really take into account what other people have to add, because obviously we don't know it all. Here are a few prompts that you can use. I'll just name a few. Do we currently have the right talent, data sources, tools in our mix? And obviously some things are more operational, some are more strategic here, but these are just a few prompts that you can use to help guide these quarterly sessions. Again, make sure that you're able to answer questions regarding specifically performance data, and also the strategic impact of the program, so that you can actually make sure that people have a better understanding that you're not just wasting money and resources on something that drives little outcome. Because if you present it the right way, it will also give senior management or any kind of stakeholders a better understanding of something that they're not involved in into the day-to-day, but it actually adds to the bottom line and is important to the company, like a lot of other functions within the company. Then experimentation forum, probably one of my favorite meetings, because this is the opportunity to share wins, failures, but specifically also learnings across the organization. And if you are a more small team, or depending on, again, how your company is structured, maybe this is not company-wide. Maybe this is in a more pod way, or where you have like one part of the company, maybe the product teams coming together. But really, this is a meeting to bring people together across the company and inspire with new ideas, and also foster cross-functional collaboration. Make sure that it's not just a wins meeting where you only share wins. While this is obviously important and makes you feel good, it's also important to share failures and make it clear to other departments in the company that winning alone is not the sole focus of experimentation, but also discovering through failures, learnings, etc., and that you're actually about gaining insights and coming up with momentum to really foster a culture of experimentation. This is one of the key things to spread the message throughout the company. One thing don't think it's in here, that I always recommend is also sending a follow-up after these forums, so people have something maybe they can share or forward to other colleagues that weren't able to be present at that meeting. Just helps again to create material for people to become interested in experimentation. Then ad hoc hot seats as needed. Obviously, sometimes things can't wait till the next weekly meeting or the monthly. And with these things, while typically being more operational, sometimes these can also be strategic, where something is say in terms of process not going right or not really aligned with where you want to go, and then having these hot seats where you also pull in potentially cross-functional experts and ideate quickly, really using methods to solve pressing challenges is and can be really helpful. Then the next one is also typically ad hoc, but some teams also do it really on a cadence, bi-weekly or monthly, where you bring, for example, various channels together, right? I've seen it with companies where there was like an e-com team that owned, say, the storefront, and then teams for paid media or email or like a CRM, whatever you call it, for them to just share insights that would otherwise just be in these containers and wouldn't find ways to like share them otherwise. So this is really super helpful, really encouraging cross-department and maybe also cross-functional collaboration between teams. And this is obviously not just regarding experimentation, you can do this generally speaking. But also here, make sure it's not a meeting where you're like, hey, by the way, what do we want to talk today? But that you become prepared, maybe also with questions. Sometimes this is also can have a hot seat in it if there's a topic you really need to discuss or you need help from other teams. But this depends on obviously how many teams you have and how that works. So I won't go through all of this here, but I want to say a word of warning. Really, every meeting should have should be well organized with a clear objective to maximize effectiveness and efficiency. Try to avoid meeting overload and make sure that not all discussions require a meeting. I've seen this time and time again with companies where for every little thing now there is a meeting for prioritization, there is a meeting for road mapping, there is a meeting to discuss quality assurance. You don't need all of that. There is things where people just need to sit down, concentrate, maybe afterwards share a Loom video or actually put something into a wiki page. Just make sure you're using the right methods for the right kind of outcomes. With meetings, I'm always trying to either have, is there something that needs to be shared and discussed? In that case, a meeting can be good. But if it's really just about a handout or some info that needs to be shared, really write it in a Slack channel or address people directly. Sometimes that's more helpful. If it's something that you need to constantly, time and time again, explain or just make people aware of, creating a wiki page and also the culture that people document things centrally can be really, really good. And just really goes in line. This meeting could have been an email or a wiki page. Then next steps, what I typically advise is communicate a schedule. Right? Don't create 20 meetings just off the bat and put them in the calendar. Start with a few and then also let people know why that meeting is necessary. Put it in the calendar, only invite the people that are relevant, and then you set them up, obviously, I said that. And then also assign responsibilities. Every meeting, in my opinion, should have a person that is in charge of the meeting actually achieving its set goals, and also for tracking action items and follow-ups, or sending, say, a meeting agenda, sending the roundup after the meeting. Really helpful, these few steps, if you're planning to make use of this system, of all these meeting types. Obviously you don't need all of them, but I would really start looking at what you already have, maybe questioning some of the meetings, and then going through these few steps. Also a few further resources that you can check out yourself that really also help with bringing all of this together. As you can see, the most efficient experimentation programs aren't just running more tests. They're running better tests and more strategic tests with a framework designed for maximum learning and impact. These 4 meetings create the backbone of that framework, turning random acts of testing into systematic approach for growth. If you want my help implementing this system at your company, just book a free 30-minute strategy session and we'll work out a clear roadmap on implementing this system in your company. In this session, you'll get 2 things. 1, a complete growth assessment that shows how you can use experimentation to grow your business. And 2, a clear plan on how you can implement even if you don't work with us. This strategy session comes at no cost to you. Use the link in the video description down below to secure your spot.